All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to go ahead and get started. It is 6 o'clock. Oh, it is actually 6:01. We're running behind already. First up on the agenda this evening, the clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Brian Mock,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimmy First,
Here.
Councilmember John Mesa, Councilmember Leslie Robson, Councilmember Paul Stovall,
Here.
Councilmember Elmer Veith.
Present.
Very good, and we need to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
A motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. We'll move on down to public hearings this evening. We have a couple. I'll read the rules of order for public hearings for zoning matters first. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request the parcels of property which are subject to the zoning proposal be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendations shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents for each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall be then allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion. The presentation times may not be reduced but may be extended by majority vote, provided that they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone and give their name and address to the city clerk, and please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, we'll move into public hearings. First up this evening, we have PZ 2024-1298, which is 2803 Shallowford Road Northeast. And Gabrielle, you're with us tonight. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Gabrielle Peters, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Planning and Development Department. We have 4 public hearings for you all today. So the first is going to be So the first one is going to be PZ 2024-1298, 2803 Shallowford Road. The applicant and owner is Hans Wakeman Chiropractic and Healing Center. The property is located at 2803 Shallowford Road. It is approximately 1.35 acres. The zoning is Neighborhood Commercial 1. The applicant is requesting 3 variances and 6 waivers, and they're proposing to add a live-work unit to the existing commercial building. Here's the site location map. The property is approximately 1.27 acres. It's located along Shallowford Road, south of Dresden Drive, east of St. Pius and Dresden Elementary. The next slide is the site plan. The existing building was constructed as a single-family home that has been used as a commercial building over the past couple of decades. It was built in 1960s. The applicant is currently using it as their business, and they would like to convert the basement into their primary residence, which will require variances from the live-work unit requirements. Because they're doing extensive interior renovations, they're also required to do exterior improvements, which include addition of a sidewalk, building architecture improvements, parking lot improvements, etc. So this is the existing floor plan. And then the next slide will be the tree canopy coverage. The next slide are some photos from the site visit. So as you can see, there's a 3.5-foot wide sidewalk along the frontage of the site. This is a photo of the existing structure. As you can see, it was built as a primary residence. Here's the zoning buffer. Behind the property is the Bedford Park Apartments. And here is the existing parking lot. It is located within the zoning buffer. So the applicant is requesting three variances. They're all related to the live-work unit requirements. The first requirement is that the live-work unit must be owner-occupied, it must be fire-separated, and it must be within a mixed-use or townhome configuration. The second is that there must be 2 live-work units, and the third is that the live-work unit must be oriented toward the street. In addition to the 3 variances, the applicant is also requesting 5 waivers. The first is to not install the streetscape. They would be required to install a 7-foot wide landscape strip and 5-foot wide sidewalk. The next 3 waivers are related to the building architecture. It's to not meet fenestration requirements, to not meet the minimum building height requirement, and to not have a heat reflective roof material. The final waiver is to not meet the landscape standards within the permanent buffer. So staff is recommending approval with conditions of all of the variances related to the live-work unit requirements and all of the waivers but the streetscape standards. So we are recommending denial of the streetscape standards. Staff, if City Council were to approve these variances, we recommend 3 conditions of approval. The first is that the applicant construct what was presented here today. The second is that the commercial and residential components remain fire separated or built to be fire separated. And the third condition is if you were to approve the streetscape waiver, the applicant shall repair the existing 3.5-foot wide sidewalk. So that includes replacing any sections that are cracked, installing landscaping per streetscape standards, and installing necessary fixtures like streetlights and benches.
Okay, very good, thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? If you want to speak, come on up, tell us your name and address, how you represent the project.
Oh, hi, I'm
Hi.
Hans Wakeman, and I'm the property owner. I think we pretty much agree on everything. That the request to do a 5-foot sidewalk along the Shallowford Road did seem a little bit excessive to us, depending on our budget, how much we're spending on the total project versus how much that would probably cost us to replace those. So the recommendation, we hope that you approve of us just replacing some of the sidewalk that needs to be replaced. As far as the other asks and lighting, furniture, the furniture, the benches, we kind of have a little bit of a homeless problem around, and so we were a little nervous about making that more of a problem, attracting more people to the front of the property. We do have benches and sitting areas within the property for the clients that come in, and if they want to hang out, walk their dogs, things around the property. So we're a little bit, if necessary, we'll do it, but we have hesitations about that. And then again, we really don't know the extent of cost for lighting. I don't know if anybody can speak to that, but the types of lamps that are standard for Chamblee. Does anybody know that offhand, like what the cost generally is for installing those? And is that our power thing, or is it tap into the city's power, or how does that work?
Staff would have to get that information for you.
And same thing with like the trash cans and things like that. I don't know if that's something the city maintains and picks up, or if that's something we have to maintain and pick up. We have no problem doing a lot of additional landscape materials and things like that. We think that's going to be great for the street, great for us. So. Yeah. No.
This
Sir?
isn't the proper time for
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, this is not the question time, sorry.
Yep. Anyway, but no trees are taken down. There's not, we're not going outside of the footprint of our building. It's all within the building that's already there. It's just, in fact, there was already bathroom and some stuff there in the basement, so, any questions?
Okay, all right. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? So I'm sorry, the way this process works is this is a monologue, not a dialogue. We can't talk back to you, we can just listen to you.
Okay,
And this comes up later in the agenda. If council has any questions for you, they'll ask at that point, but at this point in the game, we just listen to what you want to tell
Okay.
us.
yeah.
Okay.
So the overall takeaway, I think, from what I'm getting at is just, budget is always, of course, a consideration, and the budget of our overall spend for the project versus how much we have to contribute to the public works part, and so that's our biggest concern.
Okay, all right. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, again, this will come up later in the agenda if you wanted to stick around for a little while. Next up on the agenda is 3472 Chamblee Dunwoody Way. This is the area behind Blue Top Restaurant.
This item is PZ 2024-1325, 3472 Chamblee Dunwoody Way. The applicant and owner is Behind Blue Top LLC. The site is approximately 40.42 acres, and it's zoned village commercial. The applicant is requesting one variance related to the zoning buffer. And overall, the applicant is proposing an interior and exterior renovation of the existing commercial building and expansion of the parking lot. So the next slide shows the site location. The property is located along Chamblee Dunwoody Way. The subject of the variance is the parcel that is highlighted in blue. However, the buildings that are related to the project are circled in red. The site is located next to the Azalea Place Apartments. Here is the existing conditions. And the next slide shows the proposed site plan. So the applicant is proposing to renovate the existing approximately 44,000 square foot building. In addition to that interior renovation, they are proposing to expand the existing parking lot. So in the previous slide, it's the area that had the trees right to the south. They will be expanding the parking lot. It will result in removal of several trees. The next picture, or the next slide, is photos of the subject property. The next slide are photos of where the parking lot is proposed to be expanded. And here are some more photos of the existing building. So the applicant is requesting a variance from section 230-1 to reduce the required buffer between the commercial property and the apartments from 20 feet to 0. Staff recommends approval of the variance with the condition that the applicant construct the parking lot configuration to what was presented today. A second condition was added recently. It's to require that the applicant construct the parking spaces with pervious pavers. And that is all for this item.
Good. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Taylor, anything?
There.
Better late than never.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Taylor Smith, did he say address and all that? Okay. Taylor Smith, 1411 Bates Court, Atlanta, Georgia, 30319. On behalf of the ownership here, we are obviously expanding the parking lot mainly. And as such, we appreciate staff's work with us on this, and we agree with all of their recommendations at this point. So we really don't have much further to add, but we think that parking is needed in the downtown area, and especially to support the new businesses that are coming in. We're already signed a lease with a bookstore, which we're excited about, and then we're close on another food and beverage that we think would be a good complement to the community. So we want to make sure that those businesses are able to have the infrastructure that they need in place. So thank you, council. We appreciate it.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the next item, which is 4042 Parson Drive. This is Chamblee Park. This is a major DCI modification.
So the applicant and owner is Toll Southeast LP. Address is 4042 Parsons Drive. It is approximately 30-acre site. The zoning is Chamblee PUD. The applicant is requesting a major modification to the approved Development of Community Impact, PZ 2026-54. The proposed development is a mixed-use development featuring attached and detached single-family homes, apartments, and commercial retail restaurant space. The property is located on the the northern side of Chamblee, along Peachtree Boulevard. On the next slide, here is the previously approved site plan. In 2021, the property was approved for development of community impact and rezoning to the Chamblee Park PUD. The development was approved for a mix of single-family attached dwellings, stacked flats, detached single-family residential, 2 multifamily buildings with structured parking, a multi-use path, several parks, amenity space, and 3 commercial retail buildings. In 2022, the developer returned to the Design Review Board for a review of the development's architectural elevations. In 2022, a stream buffer variance was approved by Mayor and City Council, and as of today, the site does have an approved land disturbance permit for all portions of the site except the 2 multifamily buildings. So we're here today to discuss the modification of if you go to the previous slide, what's circled in red, the remaining portions of the site are proposed to remain as approved in 2021. So the applicant is now requesting a major modification to the approved DCI. The modification includes replacement of the 2 structured parking decks that would have served the apartment buildings to surface parking. This will decrease the overall number of parking spaces from 411 to 378. Reduction of the multifamily apartments from 375 to 300. Replacement of the stacked flats with townhomes. Relocation of the driveway serving the southern multifamily building, and then additional retaining walls ranging from 2 to 10 feet tall. The next slide is the applicant's proposed landscape plan. The next slide is the elevations that were presented to the Design Review Board. And then the next slide is the revised elevations of the townhome that are being changed from stacked flats. This is a result of the Design Review Board comments. The next slide is what was previously submitted by the applicant and what was presented to DRB. And then this version is what has been revised based on the comments of the Design Review Board. So ultimately, the Design Review Board asked for the applicant to revise their plan to include additional architectural features such as changing out the colors, adding different roof lines, and overall creating a design that was more in line with the remaining portion of the site. So in addition to the major modification, the applicant is also requesting 1 variance and one waiver. The variance is to not conceal the surface parking lot, and the waiver is to not install a 5-foot wide landscape strip along the parking lot, the rear and side of the parking lots. It should be noted that they are meeting this requirement on all portions of the site except the portion that's next to the church on the northern multifamily building. And I can show the site plan if you all would like. So the next slide is a result of the design review board again. So the upper right photo is the additional landscaping that the applicant will be installing along the frontage of the parking lot. This is to conceal the view of the parking lots from the road and multi-use trail. And then the lower left photo is the vegetated wall. So taking a couple steps back, the purpose of the waiver is because the applicant needs to construct a 7-foot tall retaining wall. And so in order to protect the view of that church, the applicant is proposing to vegetate the physical wall to help alleviate the view. So staff is recommending approval with conditions of the DCI modification and the waiver and variance. Staff recommends the following conditions. Everything that's in red was previously conditioned in the initial approval. So we're not changing anything except the dates of this plans that the applicant should construct the site to, which is highlighted in black. So the next several slides are the same conditions that were previously approved. The other changes are to conditions 14, 15, and 16. These are the design review board conditions, recommended conditions. So 14 is for the applicant to install landscaping and or public art in front of the parking lots. And then 15 and 16 are related to the building architecture for them to update it, which they have already done. And that is it for this item.
Thank you. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Hi, long time no see.
And it's been a minute. How have you been? Laurel David with the Galloway Law Group, 4062 Peachtree Road. I'm just going to do a quick compare and contrast. I want to thank Gabrielle for doing such a good job on the presentation, and both Gabrielle and John for spending a lot of time working with us, trying to first get this right in the first place, and then helping us to incorporate the design review board comments. So the first slide, no, I'm sorry. Can we do the Toll Brothers? I'm going to do Toll Brothers. And then Craig Gerhardt here with Gray Star is going to do the next one. Well, actually, I think you had them. You can go back to Gabrielle's presentation. More to where the townhomes were. Okay, just quickly, here's the before. Basically, the design review board was okay with changing the shape of the townhomes. The townhomes were wider, and they were stacked flats. And Toll Brothers has found they've been very difficult to get finance, particularly to sell. So what they're proposing to do is to make narrow townhomes, but have them individual townhomes. So that will still keep the price variety within the entire PUD. And then the DRB also really liked the architecture of the first townhomes that were approved. So they're crickets. Toll Brothers has gone back and incorporated some of those colors and architectural elements. The only site plan change that Toll Brothers is asking for is basically to reflect the more narrow townhomes. They will be in the same footprint of where the original townhomes were. There's not going to be any changes to the streetscape or the multi-use trail that's going to be incorporated in the streetscape. Neither Gray Star or Toll are proposing to change the streetscape at all. And then I'll have Craig come up to talk about the multifamily.
Good evening, Craig Gerhardt with Gray Star at 1545 Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia. Definitely thank you, Gabrielle, for your help assisting us with this effort and the presentation before. I think it very thoroughly covers our goal here to work. We've been working with Toll on the multifamily component of the Chamblee Park development for some time now, since the beginning of the year. But to quickly run through a few points, these were our original elevations. If we flip to the next slide, these were the elevations that we discussed with DRB in July that were proposed in September of 2022. The objective was to kind of conform more with that, and I think to the next slide here, we were able to provide a rendering, which we didn't have when we resubmitted materials. So this gives a little more three-dimensional context to our changes, and feel like this is much more consistent with the original elevations that DRB reviewed in 2022. So the next slide is a picture of those elevations, and then we can move directly into the site planning. So again, our objective here is to remove the structured parking at the rear of both of the sites. We're gonna turn it into surface parking. That's gonna allow for some additional landscaping that you can see on the following slide. And then the next one, we're going to be able to incorporate a lot more landscaping on the surface of the site by switching it to surface parking. A benefit there to the variance request in the top left-hand corner of the site plan, that area in the dashed bold line, you can see just right up against the church property, we do have a retaining wall, so we're asking for a variance from the 5-foot buffer there, and we will make sure that we're incorporating nice landscaping options there that you can see on the following slide with that wall. And then to the final, just couple here, that's just a snapshot of our grading plan that outlines some of the detail and again, the rendering. So thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, very good. We're going to move on into public hearings for non-zoning matters. I'll read the rules of order for that first. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body and not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give their name and address to the city clerk. Limit your remarks to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by council. Not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken once, and no one can speak more than twice. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, we have tonight the comprehensive plan update. And this is the second public hearing.
Earlier this year, we began the process of updating our comprehensive plan. And we have had several public meetings and steering committees to help understand what needs to be changed in the existing plan. Before we can submit the draft plan to the Department of Community Affairs and Atlanta Regional Commission, we need to have one more last public hearing. The consultant will submit the final first draft for city review at the end of this month, August 29th. And then they will return to City Council in September, at the September 12th council work session, to present the final draft of the plan before final adoption in October.
Any public comment on this item? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Very good. All right, we'll move on down this evening to the old business, which is we have 4 city council meetings. Minutes. Did anyone say anything that needed to be changed on these items? Nothing. All right, we'll move on down to the staff action items. First up under staff action items, we have a resolution to abandon the right-of-way on Beverly Drive, Reeve Street, Luwan Drive. And this is to DeKalb County. I believe this is in regards to the animal shelter.
That is correct, and that essentially summarizes what this item is. It's a resolution of the mayor and the council to abandon the roadways of Luwan, Beverly, and Reeves, as well as, I can't see the other one, I believe it's those three. There might be one
Yeah,
more. I can't see on the screen, so I apologize. In order for them to move forward with the expansion of the animal shelter that they are working on at the moment. Do you want to note that this is the city's, kind of last opportunity to move this forward on our side, and then we've got some comments for the LDP that Gabby and her team are going to be meeting with the county next week on, I believe, right? And to resolve the outstanding comments for their LDP, and then once that is done, they should be issued their LDP. They can move forward on that side, and then they'll have to go through the business or the building permit side of things. But this is kind of the last step to get them moving, aside from those remaining comments that they have on their LDP.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on down. Now we're circling back to 2803 Shallowford Road Northeast. Any questions from council on this item? Comments?
I think the only question I had was pertaining to the, I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but the streetscape that's on, that seems to be part of the issue with, now, are we recommending that they're putting light poles and the benches and the trash cans and whatever else that would apply to that particular situation?
Yes, so we're recommending denial of the waiver, but should city council approve it, we're recommending that they allow the 3.5-foot wide sidewalk to remain, but they add the components that would be required for a full streetscape. So lights, benches, trash cans, landscaping.
I think I feel the opposite. I think I want the 5 to 6 foot wide sidewalk and none of the fluff, so to speak.
Okay.
But that's a discussion we'll have. So thank you.
Further questions from council? Okay. Moving on down to 3472 Chamblee Dunwoody Way, behind Blue Top. Any questions for council on this item?
Yeah, a few questions on this one. It's encroaching pretty heavily onto the Azalea Apartments right there. Has there been any communication with Azalea Apartments in support or against this project?
No, we did the public notice. We didn't receive anything from them. I'm not sure if the applicant.
That's the question for the applicant as well. Okay, it made me feel much more comfortable if they were aware and they said that they were in favor of this, because it is going from 28 feet to 0, which is a tremendous impact on their apartment complex. Second question I have is the trees. How many trees are being removed, and are the trees being replanted on the site?
Calculation, unless the applicant has it before I can get it. If you give me.
Taylor, do you have that information?
Taylor, could you come up to the
microphone so everybody can
nobody
hear
at
you.
home can hear you?
I have on here, and Taylor, you can confirm. The applicant proposes to remove 278 inches, bringing the overall tree density from 344 to 66. The required tree canopy is 38 inches.
Just to further that point, all of the trees have been removed. We pulled a tree permit earlier this summer. So again, we're going to comply with the current ordinances, and if there's any recompense that's needed, we'll take care of that as well.
Said they had been removed already?
They've already been removed, yeah.
That kind of makes it moot.
Yeah.
Other questions from council? Okay. We'll move on down to 4042 Parsons Drive. This is the DCI modification. Any questions from council on this item?
So I looked at this plan, and I looked at it, previewed the plan before the DRB did, and I believe that if you looked from up in the sky down, the footprint really doesn't change much at all, correct? Somebody come confirm that so the people at home can know that.
That's correct. The footprint doesn't change really at all for the townhomes, and there's really just a minor
Apartments just get
adjustment on
lower
the
and
apartments.
no parking deck.
Yeah, and the switch to the surface parking in the for the multifamily, that's really the most significant change. I do want to point out, though, that the area where we're asking for the waiver, was originally where a parking deck face was going to be. And basically, our feeling was that rather than putting a 5-foot landscape strip at the top of a wall or at the height, because there is a pretty significant drop there, if the point is to mitigate the visual effect to whatever's next door, is to actually vegetate the wall. That area that is next to the wall is actually a storm sewer easement. And even though it's church property, it's right near a garden shed, I think, where they use for landscaping things. The church building is actually farther north, so it doesn't encroach on the actual church building at all.
Regarding these townhomes, are they individually platted?
They would be individually platted, so they'll be sold fee simple. Thank you.
So 3300 Burke Drive was deferred from last month's meeting in order to allow the applicants some time to consider alternative options for not meeting the shade structure on the top of the parking deck. So since that deferral, we have staff and the applicant have met several times, and the applicant is proposing 3 options for City Council to consider. So the first option is to financially contribute to the tree fund. The second option would be to install movable planters at the top of the parking deck. And then the third option would be to reduce the hardscape on the ground level. This would reduce the impervious surface from 36% to 34%. So staff recommends that council consider the contribution to the tree fund option. Should you all go with this condition, the applicant would be required to install the equivalent of 100 inches for 51% of the structure. And if the applicant cannot fit those trees on the site, then they have 2 options. They could either plant it off-site or contribute to the tree fund.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. John Hillman with Fides Development, 3480 Peachtree Road Northeast, Suite 157, Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Ms. Peters, for the recap. We did take a deferral at last month's working session and use that as an opportunity to talk with staff about some other ideas that we could implement to mitigate the lack of a shade structure on the rooftop, as well as some of the ideas that were tossed around in the last working session. And so for optionality purposes, we provided 3 for consideration. But in addition to that, in an effort to support the intent of the original code, which is to mitigate the heat island effect, at our own volition, we are still willing to do the seal coating on the top of the deck. There was substantive discussion last time that it wouldn't be enforceable or couldn't be enforceable, or how could you possibly maintain it. So the options that we've come up with tonight are visually, or are able to be visually observed by code enforcement, can be regularly inspected, and then the seal coating would be, as I mentioned, on our own will.
Okay.
So there was some discussion, I don't remember when, about also removing some of the hardscape surfaces in there, maybe not, and I don't think there's any place that you can remove hardscape surfaces that could have a tree replaced, but there could be some additional planting. So I'd like to have, probably, you don't need to discuss that with me personally, but I mean, definitely staff could probably work through that condition if we were to make that. And then the other thing was I talked to Kristen about the mechanism that might be to enforce, the regular inspection, like whether we it's part of their annual license fee or something, and you had some thoughts on how that might work, through the staff and administration. Can you comment on that, or where that is, or what that would be called?
Thank you. Probably need to talk to you about that because I need some clarification on what specifically you're looking for on that.
When we talked about it, was just having a way to trigger these inspections.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, just in general with any kind of conditions, we're looking at just coming up with an internal process in order to do that. That might require some additional.
And do you see that being as problematic or burdensome on our part, or is it really something that we could execute fairly easily?
I think we can execute that fairly easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a name for that? So if that was part of a condition, we would know what to call it instead of this rambling that I just did for 5 minutes.
This would be more of our own internal process to track and ensure compliance with conditions, development
Right.
conditions.
We'll have to come up with a name for it or something.
The Mesa rule.
Can you remind me again why the sunshade wasn't installed on the parking deck to start with?
Yeah, good question. So this project was originally entitled back in 2017. And our venture purchased it from the previous landowner and the gentleman that had obtained the original DCI approval. And in the process of transferring hands, as well as a temporary respite for COVID, it was just missed in between the original DCI approval it was only called out or shown as a hatching on one of the plans and not expressly written as a condition of approval. And so when we found out about it, we had already ordered our precast parking structure, but raised our hand with staff to identify it as an issue. And so that's led us to where we're at today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That takes us down to 1888 Keswick Lane.
This was also deferred from last month. We have not had any discussions with the property owner, so we are still recommending denial of the variance request.
So I was copied in on an email with Tiffany. I don't know if you saw it, but where the applicant had requested withdrawing the application without prejudice.
Okay.
So I don't know what we need to do to make that official, or do we just do that as a motion on Tuesday, or is that they need to have that? Do we need to have something in writing from them, and then we accept it?
Is the applicant here?
No.
No,
So do we have anything in writing?
I mean, I have an email from them that says that. They sent it to Tiffany, with staff.
we'll follow up on that, and then on Tuesday, you can accept that withdrawal.
Okay.
Okay. All right, very good. And that takes us down to public comment this evening. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give your name and address, limit remarks to 3 minutes, unless further time is granted by council. Not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken once. No one can speak more than twice. And please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. I feel like I've said the same thing many times tonight. Anyone here wishing to address council this evening? Anything on your mind? Come up and share with us. You got something? Come on up to the microphone. Give us your name and address.
Deanna Healy, 2782 Howard Drive. This has to do with the abandonment of the drives for the expansion of the DeKalb County Animal Shelter. I wish for it to be approved in the following meeting, which will be Tuesday, in order for DeKalb County to proceed with the building of the expansion that would take care of the overcrowding of the intake dogs and make it more humane, sustainable for them, so we do not have to euthanize multiple dogs every week in order to address the overcrowding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak to council this evening? All right. Seeing none, do we have executive session this evening? Very good. All right. We are out of here. Thank you so much.
That That was quick. Yeah. You thought it was going to be a longer one? For me, it's always the executive session. And also what was helpful was because I met with planning and development before, so I knew exactly what was going on. I'm having a conversation, man.
Because I'm an asshole, and I'm interrupting Jimmy, but I'm also because Leslie wasn't here. That's what she always says about me, so I think it went that way. Did it? Oh, Sharon just stepped on it.
No, I don't know where it went. The pen just disappeared. Oh, wow.
Did you catch it in your... No, it's right here.
Oh, good
I
grief.
looked right at it 3 times.
That was weird. The college drugs really kick in sometimes.